Sepulchres of the dead, graves, tombs, mausoleums, stories of the supernatural, the unexplained, even the truly bizarre, often surround them. I'm Graham Phillips, and these are some of the many such mysteries I've researched. Welcome to Grave Secrets. Amongst the forested hills of Vermont, beside Route 103 in the area of Cuttingsville, Rutland County, we find Laurel Glen Mausoleum. Today you will discover it boarded up, with local people unwilling to discuss the place. Not surprisingly perhaps, as its history is so macabre. It was built in 1880 by John Porter Bowman, a businessman who'd made a fortune from his tannery business in New York State. Having lost his first child, Addie, when she was still a baby, and now his second daughter, 19-year-old Ella, and his wife Jenny, within a few months of each other, Bowman locked himself away with his grief, but emerged after a few months with a bizarre plan. He believed he knew how his family could be brought back to life. He began searching for a plot of land he could purchase, specifically adjoining a graveyard where his bizarre project could be realized, eventually finding it in Cuttingsville. Throughout 1880, people came from far and wide to watch in fascination as the strange mausoleum was built. From the outside, the building looked just like many other tombs erected by wealthy Victorians of the time, apart from the unusual statue of Bowman himself mourning outside the entrance. The interior was something else. There were twin columns to represent the double pillars of the Kabbalistic tree of life, and busts of Bowman, his wife, and teenage daughter, and a statue of the baby, with huge mirrors on the walls, creating multiple images of them receding to infinity. But much more was constructed underground, though no plans, photographs, or architectural drawings survive to reveal what. Whatever exists beneath Laurel Glen Mausoleum, it has to be large and impressive. The record shows that over 100 skilled sculptors, masons and labourers worked for a full year on the project, and it cost over $75,000, an astonishing sum of money for the time, over $2 million by today's standards. The following year, Bowman arranged to have 3 caskets containing the remains of his wife and daughters moved to Cuttingsville, and, with great ceremony, they were reinterred in the completed mausoleum. But this was just the first phase of John Bowman's resurrection project. Right across the street from the mausoleum, he built a large Victorian mansion, a spectacular building where he lived until his death in 1891. He was then buried in the mausoleum, finally joining his family for the completion of his bizarre plan. Bowman earnestly believed that the design of the strange mausoleum would somehow enable him and his family to bodily rise from the dead. He expected that they would leave the tomb, cross the road, and enter the house, where they would start life anew. In his will, Bowman left his massive fortune for staff to continue to maintain and clean the house as if it was still occupied, Everything was to be kept in a state of readiness for the family's return. His will instructed that every day the clock should be wound, in winter fires kept burning, and at night lights kept lit. Strangest of all, he ordered that a hot meal be served each evening at a table set for dinner. Astonishingly, all this continued for over 60 years until the fund eventually ran out in 1953. After the money dried up, the property went to the trust that maintains the cemetery opposite, and they still own it. Weirdly, for much of the last 7 decades, it has remained empty. From what I could gather when I visited the place some 20 years ago, the trustees have no interest whatsoever in selling or renting the house to anyone. Sadly, Bowman seems to have been unsuccessful in resurrecting his family. Well, not physically anyway. Some say that they did return in spirit form. Even though the building is unoccupied, passers-by claim to see lights on at night, a candle burning in this upstairs window, shadowy figures moving behind curtains that are always closed, and the sound of a baby crying.